All right, let's get started. There's a few of you that decided that this wasn't interesting enough to stay. It's the end of the day. So I appreciate that. But, I think, we talked about the hackathon, right? And building things together in community. And what we've done with this surveys project is what we'd love to have seen happen with the hackathon projects, right? Get some guys together, coding, have a concept, bring it, and then actually have it something that the customers will use. And we're taking this, I think, even a step further where I could see this, and I guess I'm being recorded, so you can quote me. I could see this going to where this could be part of the product. I'm pretty bullish on the work that's being done and how useful it'll be. And I hope what will be interesting to you is really the process and the coding aspect when we show you what we've been able to do and think about the possibilities. Because in the beginning, we thought a customer came to us, and Harsh will talk more about it, and they just wanted to know, hey, can we use tasks? And we thought, no, we can build a survey for you. And then we thought, well, let's just build a survey framework so that it could be a general purpose framework that you can survey human beings, and then later, Robert can even talk about it, devices, machines. Why couldn't you ask machines what their status is and be able to surface that in Acumatica? So that's where I see it going. So let me just introduce the team. So we have Robert, who most of you know from this morning, who received the Developer of the Year award. So Marco and Stefan, I don't think, knew that. So this morning, and reason he earned that award is because he did a lot of early work. It was Darren and himself and a couple other people, but really Robert and Yuri as well worked really hard in the first couple phases. So, but then Stefan came in and he just took it to a new level. So with the really, really hard work that he's done over the last few months, he's taken it from phase 2 to phase 3, and we'll get into that. So I just want to thank all of you here who spent a little over a year from when we started to where we are now. And then I really wanted to, I remember a kind of funny thing that happened, embarrassing for me, was that I didn't realize how much work Darren had done in the background to get this off the ground, and I didn't realize, and I was in a meeting, and I didn't give him any credit, and I still feel bad about it. That's why I'm still kind of apologizing even in front of all of you. But Darren really is the reason it really got off the ground in the first place. And Chris Hargrove, who's another developer MVP, worked on the project initially and then had to drop out. So I just want to thank everyone for all that work they've done on this. So we're going to go over first what it's, the project overview, how it started and its evolution over time. Harsha will give a demo, and then we'll hand it off to Stefan. He's the one on the left, and he will talk about the code more, stuff that'll be more interesting to you that are here, that are developers. And then if we have time, we'll talk, what are the lessons we learned from this project, and really, a call to action to the developer community yourselves, hoping to get some help going forward. So let's do the overview. So I'll just give you the clicker so you can click through it.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Welcome, everyone. I promise you this is the last session, so stay through it like a brave heart, and we'll all go drink with John Rascal. So this
just mention when we will have this drink.
So this was an interesting project that kind of came out early, I think I would say early spring. And I should thank Derek from Power Storage. So Acumatica customer reached out to executive team asking for help so they can do some COVID wellness kind of responses so they can see who is sick or who has come across any COVID possibility that can happen back in the days. So at least I would say back in the days. But so we were thinking of like putting it into a spreadsheet or something of that nature, putting it into Acumatica somehow. So one led to another, and Ajay and Ali got together along with us. Then we kind of had Mark pull into this, pulled a couple of developers, the MVPs. So we started the phase one, which we call the COVID-19 wellness project. And that's all the concept was. The scope was just create something which customer can use within Acumatica and be able to survey their employees quickly to see how well they're doing on a day-to-day basis as it goes. So this I'm talking about in the month of March, April. So when everything was crazy, right? So everyone's focus was try to get the wellness program going so that the employees can take the survey and can answer a couple of questions. Did you have any sickness? What's your temperature or anything of that nature? So that's what the project scope was. So the developers got into it, and we built using Acumatica's attributes, the common attributes. We used that as a question and a response kind of thing. And we put together this first phase one. And then oh yeah, you have that.
That's why I gave it to you.
So it was done as a mobile app. So you can go in the backend and you can configure in the ERP the surveys and choose the recipients and be able to send that out as a push notification to the mobile app. So we did some workaround with the mobile app and got that working. So it worked really well, and Derek and team was able to use it. We were happy that they could use it right away. Derek, it took us 4 weeks to turn around?
Yeah, it took about 4 weeks to turn it around. Sorry. I know I speak
Yeah,
pretty
well,
loud.
we can record it. We're recording. The only
But,
way the two guys out of the country can hear is through
Oh,
the
okay, I'm
mics.
sorry.
That's
So,
okay.
so when I reached out to him, I basically said, hey, look, I really don't have a budget for this, but I have a real need. And so they came together and created this massive thing in about 4 weeks. And all of a sudden, we were pushing out to our 40 techs that were running all over. We were hitting 46 different states. And they could see, the service managers could see immediately that they were healthy, they weren't running a temperature, where they were the last 3 to 5 days, who they were working with. And so it was all coming back and into a dashboard. And it was, it was really cool. It still brings a tear to my eye sometimes just talking about it. I get really emotional because knowing that somebody cares about our people as much as we do and seeing that in a very large company is just really pretty cool.
There's a question over there.
Take the mic.
During that initial rollout, how often were your techs taking the survey?
So when we first rolled out the survey, and a lot of this was coming down from the CDC, we were trying to keep up with it and ahead of it. So we started out with phone calls. We were calling every single tech every morning and then logging it in Excel. And then we started trying to send out via email, which really was a horrible idea. And so that's when I reached out to Kim Plank. She put me in touch with the team up there, and so we kind of went from there on it. And so then they just got, every morning at 7 a.m., our guys get a push notification, and they answered the I think it's 4 questions.
Yeah.
And they answered those 4 questions, and then everything gets logged, which was really great for traceability. As then, we started working on, when we're moving through state to state, different states, different companies had to know where we were prior to that. And even though we had a lot of mobility with being a first responder, we still had to have all the traceability. So it was just amazing to see how fast they could put something together and just roll it out. Right. And I'm excited to see where it's going to go too, because
No, that's great.
I want to see where it's going.
Derek. Yeah.
You will not recognize.
So as you can see, it could have gone from a phone call to paper and things like that, and then we moved it into digital transformation into the Acumatica itself as version 1. And then as we kind of got that up and running a couple of months later, we kind of said it's got to be a next version. What could the next version do? Because it was only limited to employees, and they had to use the mobile app. It was a push notification. So what we wanted to take that out, because it has to be device independent, somebody should be able to take the survey. So that's where the concept of survey came in. So can we turn this into a survey? So we went back into a drawing board, hashed everything out in terms of design structure, the tables, the GIs, the whole, how do we bring in the external contacts? How do we bring in customers or vendors or being able to survey anybody? So as we start working on that, then of course someone else threw the ideas again saying, why can't we do anonymous survey like anybody? It shouldn't have to be in Acumatica. So the real question came up, well, we can definitely ask questions and survey the existing customers who can log in. But in a survey concept has to be somebody who shouldn't be logged in. So now how do we take this out from here and push it out to the outside world and take the survey? Really, if you really want to beat the survey monkey, then that's the only way to beat it. So we kind of said that, and we worked on it for a few more months. Came out the version 3, that's probably around when Stefan and team joined, new blood, brought new ideas, and they took this up to the next level. I threw in that concept, the word over there, survey as a platform. I don't know if you ever heard it, but that's probably the first time you will hear it. It's a SAP, survey as a platform. So you wanted to use this as a platform where you can take this survey and you can create this within Acumatica, and you can survey anybody. You can tie this to an entity being you can tie it to a customer, a vendor, an inventory, or it could be sales order, it could be support cases, anything that you have as an entity in the system. It could be even field service appointments. If somebody wants to have an appointment and then there is something that you want to take a survey after the appointment is done, how was my appointment? Then we want to take that concept and said, how can we integrate that into the system and then take to the next level by using the webhooks that Acumatica had released. So using that, we want to send the survey out. So today I want to kind of walk you through that and kind of show you the demo as to how you can do that in the system. And we are setting up the infrastructure for you guys to be able to scale this so that, this is a project, it's a community project. Anybody can download from GitHub and you can extend it, you can fork it out, and you can extend it to the way you want to do it. Ultimately, we want to see this using by partners of Acumatica, customers, developers, being able to survey anything. It could be HR department, it could be sales, support, marketing. You can take this out, prepare the survey, send it out to the people that you want. So it's going to be really, you ready?
I'm going to do the screen. It's easier. I couldn't find that, so that should show up hopefully.
All right, perfect.
Now we're good. I'll let you drive.
So this is Acumatica 2020 R2. Once this is done, then we're going to recompile it for 21 R1. But if you install the package itself, you will see a new workspace called Surveys. So there's a couple of preferences. Obviously, we follow Acumatica standards, so you can go in and activate and configure some of these configurations. Pretty straightforward, and I'm going to walk you through some of these as I go through it. And once you do that, then we can integrate also. In this case, I'm trying to show you that I can integrate this with support case. If support case is open and you worked on a case and you closed, then a survey can get triggered and sent out to the customer saying, how was our support services? Do you like it and whatnot, right? So you can survey that. So there's a preference that you can do. And once you're done with that, you can definitely go to the surveys here, the transaction, click new. For this demonstration, Mark has his survey, and it's called Mark's
Most excellent survey.
Excellent survey. So that's Mark. He's at high standards. So one of the things that you notice here is it looks like and feels like Acumatica, right? Everything is pretty much the same configuration in terms of survey ID, the template. So you want to drive it as a template. So today we just have a couple of templates, but down the road, people can actually write templates and you can put it on Marketplace. Or people can use it in different templates, being support case being one template. Marketing might have another template. HR departments can have another template. So you choose your template, and you can also have certain notification in terms of what you want to send as a reminder. The most important part is this area, which is the target, right? Whom am I targeting? Am I targeting users, contacts, or anonymous users, or entity itself? So in this case, I've chosen as contact. And then I can also have a configurable thing where I want the layout to be single page or multiple page. Single page indicates all the questions are in the one page, and they just go through it, all the 4 or 5 questions, and hit submit and done. A multi-page is where it'll ask you one question, then you hit the next, second question, and third. So it kind of pagination is going on. So we built that concept as well. So we're going to replicate as much features are there in SurveyMonkey within Acumatica Monkey probably. So you give a status. So these are all the placeholders that we have today that will all going to be used as you start using the you're preparing the survey, and you start the survey out. And the progress is like your response is collected. And once the response is fully collected, then you can actually close it. So there are certain ground rules how you can set this up for. If you want to run the survey for a week, if you want to run the survey endless period because support cases keep coming and it gets triggered and the service is collected. So you could do that, or you could do an hackathon event and you want to collect a survey at the end of the session, you could do that as well. So there are some ground rules for each of those statuses. So in this case, I've chosen contact, and then the load template is basically you have a template, and when I hit load template, it will give me an option, how many questions you want me to insert here. So depending on that, it just puts a placeholder, then you can go in and select each component. So one of the things that the team did was, I'm gonna hit the preview here so you can see what exactly I'm talking about. Hopefully I don't need this. I'll see.
Just say
that.
okay.
Okay. So this is the survey that Mark put together. As you can see, you can put your logo, right? You can put this survey caption, the headers, the different questions that we want to ask the users. So this is one page, a single page survey. You can accept the survey and hit submit. So you can control every aspect of it in terms of what you want your header, what you want the page footer, what you want the logo to say, and how you want these questions to come in. So based on the attributes within Acumatica, so I want to click on this when I talk about the attributes. So let me just click on this. Is that the attribute? If we go down to this, again, we're using the common attributes that everyone is familiar about, right? So you can go ahead and create your survey attributes ahead of time. It could be a simple question and all the answers that you want to collect. So we use the survey attributes in terms of the common attributes, I should say, and we're able to add the questions that we want to ask. In this template, we have the header. So I can click on the header section just to show you. You can put in the HTML code, right? So some of them are templates. You can, it gets pre-built in the system. You can also have the ability later on down the road, you can download other templates from other marketplace, or if you're a developer, you can key in the component itself. So the team took the ability to take this entire survey here and broken down that into components. So that means it's configurable no matter what it is. And you can use any kind of style sheets, anything that you want to do. We want to give the liberty and the freedom to end user to figure this out, how they want this survey to look and feel like. So that's a really interesting change in the version 3 that's done. So as I go ahead and choose my layout, my questions that I want to ask, and then after when it's all done, when I hit submit, then there's a thank you. So when I hit thank you, then there's a component. That component, all it does is it shows you a thank you, and you can put in your description over here if you wanted to. So it's all configurable in the system. Once that's done, then I can go to the recipients and I can select the recipients that's within the Acumatica. Since we chose contacts, so we're going to look at the contacts table, and it gives you the access to the whole contacts table. So now you're not just sending it to somebody, you're sending it to this exclusive team that you want to. If you want the HR department want to send it only to the employees, they can select that. So the add recipients is another idea. Once you had that, then you can go to the collectors where it starts to collect the data. So I can just quickly run this as I see the preview here. I can preview the system, and I can actually go ahead and just answer this quickly. So you can see the answers coming down. I'll just go for it, and hit submit. So you got the feedback. So if you go down to my answers and go ahead and refresh or process answers, you will see the answers coming through it, and it will populate the data here. So now, as we go through this, of course, it shows all the answers, the comments, and then you also have the setup part where this is where you have the Acumatica webhook. So we created a webhook so that you could be sent this out, and anybody can access this webhook without logging into Acumatica. And then when this hits submit, we process that webhook and update the data. So that's a major change that's happened in version 3, and this is probably going to be the best. So I'm very excited about this feature. And another last feature that I want to show you before I jump off and give it to the developers to kind of walk you through how they really coded this. So if I change this contact from the target to the entity, then you see a new option called the entity type. So when you hit this drop down, all the entities that ever exist in Acumatica is exposed. So now you can go ahead and choose, for instance, I can say sales order, and I can say if the sales order is closed or shipped, then I can send a survey to customer and say, hey, how was the your shipping process, or how was the sales order process? What was customer satisfaction? So I can choose any different entity that might be there. It could be even field service. I was talking about the appointments, right? When the appointment's done, your car is serviced, then you can send out an email saying, how was the service? So the entity is really going to drive a lot different usage from different people in different departments, in different industries. So this definitely will be used by the partners as well as customers, vendors, and the whole list of users that are there in Acumatica itself. So we took this entire database that's there, we put the survey on top of that. So now here we have a really good version of Acumatica Survey.
Yeah.
With that said, I kind of want to highlight a couple of features and then I'll turn it over to the developers. We have the option to turn on the allow anonymous so that you could actually send this out and collect a public feedback. Not only an employer contacts, but it could be a public feedback that anybody can vote and get some data as you want to collect and be able to harness the data. So this also has the ability to do some dashboards. Obviously, you can start harnessing the power of the data that you're collecting, and you can analyze the different types of data that's coming into the system. So with that said, I would hand it off to the
Well,
developers.
before we do that, I think
Yeah.
one thing that we want to just
right.
emphasize is the case. So one of the things we wanted to do in Mimic was the Acumatica surveys that go out to you once the case is closed. So say you open up a developer case and you get that survey monkey, we want to replace that. So Ali agreed that once we get it to a state that there'll be a beta tester. And actually Harsh's company is actually going to be probably our first guinea pig with phase 3.
Right.
But then we're going to use it internally in Acumatica. So you'll actually get, when you close a case, it'll automatically send you a survey. And so, hopefully we'll be able to have that started in about a month.
Yeah.
And so maybe surveys in about a month from now, they'll actually be driven by this.
Right. So
Which
if
is
you
really
are-
cool. So you can do, so he showed you the single page, but we also can define multi-page,
Multi-page,
right?
yeah, yep.
And so with the case, you can say, okay, I want 4 questions per page, and then how many pages? So, obviously when you're getting surveys from us around the case, there's a lot of questions, right? Personally, I'm a big fan of 7 questions or less, right? I just don't, people aren't going to fill out anything. They just want to, okay, 2 minutes of my time, sure, I'll do it. But if you're getting multi-page and a lot of, 100 questions, you're just not going to do it. So, but we give the flexibility in the framework to be able to design it. And I really have to give a lot of credit to Stefan Boulanger, because he basically re-architected a lot of this, right? I mean, he spent lots and lots of hours, and I couldn't be more grateful for the effort that he's put in. So what you're going to see, I'm going to hand it over to Stefan. He's going to talk a little bit more in depth about it and actually show you code. So,
Mark, there's a question from there.
oh, we have a question. Let's get the mic. Let me give you the mic
Oh, it's a comment.
because
Okay.
we want to record it.
It was more of a comment. The immediate application that we'd like to start with, like next week, is
Next week.
yeah. No, I'm serious. We talked last night. In service management, technicians go out into the field and they often have to fill out. They wouldn't call them surveys, but they're fillable forms, right?
Right.
Oil level, just safety checklist.
Right.
And there's nothing that integrates with Acumatica right now. Nothing.
Surveys.
And
Yeah.
and we looked at that. Yuri showed us that last night, and we were like, because we're in a real bind right now with the customer, and that's
nice.
an immediate application.
That's great. Yeah.
So we might start with this next week too. Same application question. Can you make workflow contingent on surveys being completed? So for example, a service tech, they start an appointment. The starting of the appointment initiates a survey, checklist, whatever it is that they need to fill out, and then prevent them from completing the appointment until they filled the survey out.
So
Well, as a developer, of course. Of course. Business events and,
That's a given.
yeah. So I think that one of the ways that we're trying to do this is utilize Acumatica's framework. Whatever Acumatica is throwing at us, we should be able to use that. So one of the areas that the developers thought about is to use the business events and drive off the business event. And you write your business event based on your conditions, set the condition. As that triggers, then that will be linked to the entity so that then the survey gets turned on and be able to send out. So if somebody comes in, think about this. If you order a Domino's pizza, it has this status showing you. At every stage, you can send out a survey and say, hey, is this good? Is this happen? Is the service working? So I think that is the ultimate thought process for us to take this to the next level. So I think we're going to clean up a little bit more work, maybe a week or 2 to clean this up. And probably, as Mark said, I'm going to use it for the first time, and I want to see how it goes. If the law looks good, then I would definitely encourage, if you're all interested, then let Mark know as a beta tester. We can open up probably as early as August first week, and then see how that all goes out, and then constantly we can improve the system, give us more feedback, and obviously that's going to be on the GitHub. We're going to be having a lot of tasks, and people will start to work on it.
Yep, yep. And just to be honest, I mean, out of the box, no, but the platform that we have obviously makes it so if you have developers, consultants, those type, they can make it happen, right?
Yeah.
So it's the ability's there, it's just not going to come out of the box.
There was a question from,
Is that Troy?
So, wow, sorry.
you know,
So question, like business events, you can do where it's not fired by every record, but like a group of records. So is there a way, and I take the sales order shipments for an example, if I got 50 shipments going to a customer, I don't want to necessarily send them 50 surveys. Is there any way to be able to limit that so that they'd only get one survey for the day, for example?
I think we have something, we had a schedule.
We will
scheduler
add
built-
it to backlog.
I think we had a scheduler built where we could say how many times you want to send the survey. And then also there's we looked at all the different options that you can do with the survey. Somebody wants to send only once, and submission of once is done. Now I can go back and edit my survey because my opinion changed because I watched TV and something changed. So, and then I can edit, or I can have an expiry time period when the survey ends. So I can have the start and end time period. Some people would like to do the survey just for an hour and collect all the responses immediate. Somebody would like to keep it for a week. So you can set up all the schedules ahead of time and say how you want your survey to react. Whether it is single submission, multi-submission, whether it's anonymous submission, or it is tied to this contacts. So in your case, probably if you're a customer or contacts, then you know you're going to select a list of them. So you can load the list from Acumatica, which is already there. The whole ERP is there for you. So you can take that out and you can push it out. So I think we're going to add some more preferences around when it can be scheduled and how it can be sent. So that's where we're kind of going to look for some feedback as the real scenarios come out when it really hits the road, right? So thanks.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
comment on this gentleman's comment that he made about oil in tanks, and where I kind of see phase 4 going is IoT devices and automatically measuring levels of fuel in a tank in a field, or in the case of backup battery supplies, the health of those batteries, the temperature of those batteries, the voltages of those batteries, and those key things that would allow you to take proactive action to remediate a problem before it even happens. So our hackathon entry this year was more or less, I think, where phase 4 is going to go, and automating those sorts of feedbacks from electronic devices.
An example would be like Internet of Things. You know, you kind of put IoT devices on anything that you want to kind of check the temperature on. Then the survey can query that IoT and say, what's the temperature? And it can report that it's the temperature is 18.5, and it comes back as the result as 85. So it's like bot to bot talking without any human intervention, other than you setting up the survey. So this is really helpful in remote locations if you want to monitor something and you want to keep checking. So we could use this, it's not really survey, but you can use to exchange information back and forth by questioning it and getting the answer.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is you're surveying, instead of humans, machines, or other entities, things, right? So that's the idea, taking it to that level, which I think, I'm excited about it. And, we want to really take it to the next level. But now it's time for Stefan, if you want to share your screen and, just kind of, you've been thinking about this in terms of how we've structured the actual talk, some of the things you can show code-wise and your approach. So we see your screen.
Yeah, can
Yep.
you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
I guess licensing comes up when you think about IoT hitting a lot. So don't want to consume a lot of ERP or commercial transactions. So I don't know if that's something that corporate needs to think about, how the licensing works for stuff like that, but just a thought.
Yeah, we did run through it through the executive team as well as the development team from the perspective that there's going to be transactional data. It's a ERP transactional. So the commercial, I haven't come across what the commercial aspect would be, but definitely the webhooks is something that we shared that, hey, if you go down the path of webhooks, then imagine sending it out. That's why you've got to be a little bit careful. You can send out to anonymous 1,000 people. If you do that, then, or if it's a public survey, then anybody can come and vote as long as they got the webhook URL, then there is a submit request from the webhooks.
Yeah.
So there could be, it's a thin line, we may cross that, but for now, I think we touched on that.
Bridge, wait
Yeah.
till we get to the bridge. But the other thing is, you can paste that URL on a button on a web page, right?
Yeah.
So you can just click, it's not just sent out.
Yeah.
Okay, Stefan, you're on the big screen now, so go ahead and do your magic.
Can you see my, wait a
Yep.
second.
Yes.
Okay, so I was going to show the actual Acumatica survey that you received. So this is the actual version inside of the survey engine. So it's almost identical. Thanks to Marco, expertise in HTML, not mine, for sure. But it looks almost identical to the one that you have on SurveyMonkey.
So this is the multi-page that he's showing. It's not a single
This is the
page.
multi-page.
Yeah.
So as you can see, we have the progress bar, we have different types of components, et cetera, et cetera.
And this is the Acumatica survey, though.
It is.
It looks like
Duplicate of it.
It is, but it is defined in Acumatica. So that's the Acumatica monkey version of it. So as you can see, like Arsha mentioned, we can integrate with any entity type. So how do we do the integration? Well, we want to show basically a request survey button. So you can actually either automatically via a business event or manually, if you wish to, request a survey based on a case. Now, typically that would be automated, but still it gives you the opportunity. If it was forgotten, for example, you had a problem, you can request manually a survey. So how do we get this integration? So what we did is we basically created an abstract graph extension, which is an abstract version of the extension where we look at the setup and we see is the entity we're talking about integrated with the surveys. And if it is, then we basically create an action for it. And we have plans also to make eventually a folder where you can actually see all the surveys available to be sent again a case. Because even though it's a case and there's one standard for your case, for a customer survey, you can have more than one survey that you want to use. So you'll be able to send a specific survey to the customer based on the interaction that you just had with the customer. So once we had created this graph extension, the only thing we needed to do basically was with one line of code, we just create in this case, a CR case extension, and we are a subclass of the abstract survey handler. And that makes the button available, and eventually, like I mentioned, it's going to be replaced by a folder and a series of selections, so you're able to send the exact survey that you want to send for that case, specific case. Now, obviously, how do we do that? We have a setup here where you can set up, against the cases, what kind of survey you want to use. In this case, on my machine, survey 11 is about cases. So I can go here and I can select this case again for when we close a case. If I had more than one, then I could put another entry and say, well, I have a survey 11, survey 35, whatever the survey code would be. So you can have actually multiple survey per entity. So, for example, if you look at the customer here, it's not integrated, and I could try to actually, I just made while Archer was talking, I just made this class, but I haven't compiled it yet. So I guess I'll try to risk myself, and so I'll just recompile my code, and I'll just let's see if it works. I'll refresh my screen, and in theory, I should have a button appear here. So let's give it a few seconds. So how do we get the survey content? So like we mentioned, we're using a webhook. And the webhook, basically you just declare it. And we have created a class, which is Survey Webhook Survey Handler, which handle all the back and forth between the HTML client, the browser, and the Acumatica server. So let me go back to the customer now. So as you can see here, now I have the request survey button. You can see it's disabled. Why is it disabled? Well, because I don't have an entry here that is tied to a customer survey. So if I were to insert here the graph type customer and the entity type customer, I could tie a survey, if I had one, to be the customer survey, and then this button would become available immediately. So you can integrate, like Arsha mentioned, with any entity of the system. So let me close that. Same thing here. For example, I have an integration with the purchase orders. If you want to send a survey to a vendor or a customer, and so on and so forth. So let's go through the interesting things about the webhook server. So let's dig into the. Let me close a couple of screens here.
Hey, Stefan, can you
Yes.
increase the size of your code so we can see it a little bit better?
Yeah. Okay, so let me go here. How about this?
Looks better.
Okay. So how do you implement a webhook handler? Well, it's very simple, actually. Everything is simple with us, but that's not true. I'm lying here. So basically, you implement this interface, which is called Hi Webhook Handler, which Acumatica has defined, which is basically asking you to implement one method, which is process request async. And so what we have in here, basically, it's not a lot of code, and you will see why later. So basically, we create a user scope in order to be able to talk to Acumatica without having a user being logged in. So now we can have our code, and we have tried to minimize the code that we have here. So basically, we get some parameters from the query, one of them being the a collector token. And then we're trying to figure out what page do we want to go and show to the user. And if the user has been clicking on submit on one of the next button or the submit button, we're going to actually save the answers. So to do that, we have a little bit of code here where we keep the request message information, and then we go save the answer in Acumatica as being one of the collector data. So not a lot of code there, nothing fancy here. And then once we have saved the data that just, because the user has a click on the next or submit button, now we're looking for a page content to provide to the user. So now we're going to go, actually, we have an object called a survey generator, which is where all the magic happens. And we basically call the generate survey page from here. And so it does a couple of things here. First of all, you have a token coming from the URL that the user or the anonymous user is running. So we're trying to map this token to a survey and user. And so we have this little function here where we, based on the token that we have, connect everything together. And then we go for the main templates. So Harsha has mentioned the templates that we're using. So let me show you the real template that Marco has devised for us. So if I go here, this is the template. So fairly simple HTML. You see here a little few variables. I put them in reverse. I hope you can see them. So we have the survey.
The screen's a little small to see, at
increase
least
the
from
Okay.
my vantage point. So that's part of the problem. There we go. That's better.
That's better?
Better.
So here we have an object, and I will describe what it means. So we have the survey title here, which comes from the actual survey. So nothing is hard-coded in this template, okay? Besides the styling, normally nothing should be hard-coded. So we have the survey title here, and we have the survey for name coming from the survey. We have the survey URL here, and we have some content that we don't know of yet what it will be because it's based on the details, right? So if I go back, so I have my survey here, my template that I'm going to be able to find. I'm going to parse it, and I'll discuss what engine we're using a little bit after. So we're parsing, and then we're creating what we call the context for the survey, where we have all these variables inside of the context. So we have the survey objects inside of the context. We have the setup, the Acumatica survey setup inside of this object. We have the user that we're talking to, and we have some information about the survey itself that we're running. So obviously the survey has a token, and we want to know, is it single page or multi-page and stuff like that. So basically the survey engine that we're using, or the template, I should say, engine that we're using is called Scribble. So I'll let you look at that later on the web. So it's a very fast and very efficient and very powerful template engine. So it allows you to produce any kind of content by using a certain content that you have and be able to merge content from Acumatica inside of it and produce an output. So this output could be XML, could be HTML, could be JSON, could be anything you want. So it's just a matter of merging the template. And I think most developers are familiar with templating in web applications and websites and so on, right? So this is the ones we use. So let's go back to our how we produce the HTML. So let me go back here. Sorry. So get survey context. So we're basically here preparing a context. And then, so this is here. And then we go fill it with some page information. And then we have a method here, which is called render components for page. So basically what we do here is we grab the details here for the page that we want to render. So let's say I want to render page number 2, for example. I'm going to grab this page header here. I'm going to grab a question definition. I've expired here, sorry. Let me refresh that. I have a page footer as well. So I'm going to grab those 3 components, which are declared here as well in the same screen. So again. So if I look at this one, this is an example of a question using a radio buttons, okay? And so we have declared here the progress. So the component is this one, progress, SU progress. No, sorry, SU, this one, SU radio button. And here we're using one of the attributes, SU resolve. That is the common attributes that all of you know. So I have 3 values. So what we're able to do here is basically iterate over these questions details and produce the HTML that we need to create the controls that you see on the screen. And all those variables here are saved into the context. So basically it's if you will, it's a programming language and a mix of HTML. So you can do for loops, you can do assignments, you can do validation with ifs, for example, like this, and so on and so forth. And this is, for example, the end of the for loop. Okay, so this is how we generate the HTML. And so let's go back now to the webhook. So once we have generated the page, basically, we just, let's see, let me go back here. Oh. Scroll up a little bit. So now we have generated a content. So there's 2 cases here. either the token is changed, which I will not discuss here, or the token is the same. And basically, we just send back the result to the user. So now the user sees the HTML page, is able to interact with it, and by clicking whatever button they click, they'll come back here and either get the next page or thank you page and so on and so forth. Whenever we have an error, we also have a bad request page we want to show, so they have a nice error message in case there's a problem. So again, another component here, which is the, let me refresh again. So there's a bad request component here, which is basically just some kind of pop-up, and there's a message in it. So it's fairly simple. So as you can see, those components are fairly simple components. Okay, not a lot of stuff, just a little bit of HTML, a little bit of logic, but the power that you have at your disposal is immense in the ability to basically dynamically generate whatever content you want at runtime. And nothing of that is actually pre-rendered. It's rendered dynamically in the browser because what we're sending back is a rendered HTML page. So, and as you can see, obviously below the survey, you get all the requests that have been made against it. But this is standard Acumatica stuff. And so that's pretty much it for now.
All right, thanks, Stefan. That's amazing. As you guys see, he's done a lot in terms of the coding, and he's pretty much single-handedly handled most of these components. That was his idea. So one of the things that we want to do with the webhook was we didn't want to have somebody call the webhook from outside and then generate the whole content. So we wanted to kind of generate the HTML so that the CPU power is used then and kept ready. So when the request is made, it's a simple HTML. So it's lighter, and it should be at least serving most of the cases. Only when there is a real-time survey, then probably we may have to think different. But this was a great thing. Any afterthoughts?
Well, I think that, I'm really excited about it. I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit of lessons learned and things and the challenge it is, because these guys are donating their time. They're not getting paid for this, right?
What?
Right? And the challenge really is
Well, Arsha, we are, but you're not. You were not supposed to.
and you can see, I think you can see the complexity that we have, what we've been able to accomplish. But I think when you see the code and what Stefan was able to show you, I think the power of the platform, because really, I think that, I like, Harsha always has great ways of positioning things. It's why he's really, if he comes to a hackathon, his teams usually do pretty well. And he's really good at thinking about, how we can integrate this and where the business value is, right? Beyond just how cool it is technically, but really, and it was really cool to hear some of you in the audience that say, I want this next week. And I can see the app. That really warms my heart, seriously, to hear that,
I tell Mark, this is the real hackathon. When
Yeah.
you do something like this is the real hackathon.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be used for sure.
Yeah.
If nobody, at least I'm going to use it.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yeah, but the work that went into this, and like I said, it was done, pro bono, really, and that's why I'm so thankful. But my challenge was, herding the cats, to get them to work and hounding them and saying,
Busy cats.
and driving meetings. And, one of the reasons I had this, we had a review with Ollie, Joy, and some others, and going through this. And I use that, of course, as a way to get the work really going, right? Because they know that they have a deadline, because without a deadline, things never get done, right? And then, be able to show it here. So there's been a flurry of work for those two milestones, and now we just need to push it over the finish line so that, our customers can actually start using it. And we're close, but we're not there yet, right? Marco was on a flight to Spain, and that interrupted his work to finish the business event that was going, that basically sends the email out. So Marco's going to finish that while he's in Spain, right, Marco?
Right.
And then, and then we'll do the other things that's needed. And then if we have interest from you, that'll also drive, us finishing this. So it's kind of exciting. So from my perspective, just getting people together and excited about this. And the other thing that's really exciting for me, who owns essentially the developer ecosystem at Acumatica, the MVP program, I do the summit, dev track, I do the virtual dev conferences, I built this team of MVPs, developer MVPs, and we've wanted to have a real community project that actually is shipped and used by a customer, and to have Derek come to us and really rally around this idea, when COVID came out, a lot of uncertainty and fear, right, that was going around, and people, it really brought us together to be able to put this project together in just a few weeks, right? But we were motivated because we felt like we were doing some good, right, was coming out of our work, and that's what drove it. And without having the customer there to saying we really need this, and then the people behind it to make it happen is what drove this home. And I'm really proud that we actually have a project that's based really on a community effort of our community of developers to come together to do that. And what I want to do is invite those of you in the audience too, that if you're developers, we'd love you to join us and help us take it beyond where we are now. But we can't pay you. But we pay you in gratitude. I don't know if that has any currency, but so I really wanted to open it up to the rest of the team. I wanted to open it up to the rest of the team around in, some of the things that they've learned on this project. Oh, we have a question.
Go ahead.
I'd like to also give my comments.
So yeah, I'm a new developer to Acumatica. So one of the references you had was to the token. Is that a standard field on the user object, or where is that token coming from that connects the dots?
Marco, you answer, or should I go?
Yeah, well, I can answer. I also wanted to share my thoughts about the project, so I can answer. Seems I already connected. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so well, the token is not a standard field. It's actually part of the design that we made to have a unique ID go out when we generate the URLs. The idea is to be able, as Stefan mentioned, to be able to match each URL to a unique recipient. We're able to generate URLs for anonymous users, but it's generated on the fly. Actually, on this version, when we ship it, the tokens actually would be encrypted in a way, so you're not able to just guess a token. And the idea is that it matches some entity or some recipient uniquely, but it's not in any way serialized or in a sequence, right? So we a lot of thought went into how we could do that and not add up some vulnerabilities to the platform. Right?
Okay, thank you. A couple other things that we would like to see in this is we get a lot of form requests from our customers, and we have to mimic those, and a lot of those are sectioned off. So having the concept of not just such a page reference, but maybe a section reference. So these 4 questions are in section A, these 5 questions are in section B. That is that kind of context, especially when you're dealing with some of the guys we're talking about. Same with us, with our service technicians, when they're out in the field, they got to fill these out, and the concept of a section is also relevant to that context. Also, the ability to take photographs as part of the survey. So having that web interface, and then I know that sucks. We do it the same thing. It's a nightmare, but and then. Yeah, and then the third thing is conditional questions. So we have a lot of scenarios where only if you answer X do you have to fill out the next question, kind of thing. So those are the 3 things I would like to see
I think
additionally.
the section can be done when you structure it the way the questions you want to put in. So you can probably create a new component called section, and then you can just section all your 4 or 5, and that's free. The image one, we'll fork it out, and we'll split another project. The image could be done. That's a possibility to allow people to upload, but of course, then you're opening up the can of worms. What type of media can be uploaded? And it's going to go into SaaS. And as you all noticed, John Rascal said there was 0 intrusion of Acumatica, so we don't want to open up something which will let that go in. But it's a possibility for people to take pictures or anything to show. Maybe
Well, as a matter
version
of
5.
fact, the upload still gets, so anything you would upload from the web page will still go through the Acumatica infrastructure. So it would be impossible, for example, to ask the user select an image and they would take a executable file and then load it, right? It would be impossible because you still have to go through the Acumatica, even though you go through the webhook, you have to go through the Acumatica infrastructure.
All right. Derek, you had a question?
I got a comment more than a question, I think, is it's almost like when we're talking about these services, we're in the same boat. We have a lot of services, but we're almost taking the surveys now and creating a survey form that is going to end up being a service report, is what I'm hearing a lot in the room. And we're kind of going into a whole nother direction with surveys that could be overlaid like into the service platform.
Yeah.
So my guys are filling out everything right there on that, and then if you're tying in pictures and everything, boom, all of a sudden it becomes a service report that gets sent out to the customer at the same time.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I mean, is that kind of what your thought? Yeah.
So
mean, you
I
could see how
foresee
this-
this becoming part of field service somehow.
Yeah, behind you.
Well, a survey, we call that a survey, but a survey and a form, to me, is one and the same, right?
Yeah.
It is.
And that may be tied into the daily field reporting construction. But no, I have 2 related questions. Yeah. 2 related questions. One, as developers, would you rather see this stay an open source project or migrate into the product? And then related to that, what needs to happen for it to become part of the product?
Well, for me, from my perspective, I want it to stay as part of the open source for a while, but eventually it would be great if it was integrated in the product. But just like it's part of our product, like when we talked about Acuminator earlier when Vladimir was here, or any other projects that we have out on GitHub, we invite people to come and fork our code and do branches, but not many people have done it yet, right? And which is a shame, really, because we have a lot of great stuff out there, and it would be, you can take it and modify it, and then it has value. So I would like to, to see more of the community get involved and build this to meet the needs of what I hear in the room, right? As even a form, survey is a form, right? Survey is simply a survey is just a semantic of I'm sending you something. I want you to give me feedback, right? But a form, it's just a form. That's all it is. So I mean, it could be any of that. So.
Marco wants to say.
Yeah, I want just to complement that with my thoughts on the project, and I think that's going to be like a call to all developers. Really, you mentioned that you cannot directly pay open source project, but in reality, these kinds of projects really give you back as a developer. So I'm sure I speak for everyone on the team, but eventually, when you work in these kinds of projects, you end up learning more, right? So be it by working with other really intelligent people and developers tackling an issue like this, a problem, and eventually whatever you put into the project, you get back with experience, and actually in the hackathon, you learn to do something new. In a project like this, it's like a longer term project where you get, for example, we saw how Stefan designed a way to, using generic extensions, to be able to add that capacity to serve for surveys to any entities, right? But that can be used in any other kinds of issues that you need to extend a simple functionality all across the platform, right? So you can easily see many things that you can learn in a project like this and apply to other problems. Just the way we solved being able to get output and input to anonymous users using webhooks, it's a really powerful tool. And you can, even if you didn't end up using the surveys for what we are planning on, and eventually perhaps using it for Internet of Things with devices, you could still take what you learn from a project like this, that it's already open source, and apply it to build your own webhook to get automatic inputs and things like that. So I just wanted to let you know that if you are willing to put a little time in open source project in Acumatica, you'll end up getting more in return. So it's really important if you have the time or talk with your team or somebody in your team that can join a project like this, you'll end up getting a lot of information back that you can apply later.
It forces you to push the envelope all the time, because you're dealing with a lot of people with a lot of knowledge, and each have their expertise. But they say, well, what if we try this? What if we try that? What if, oh, I didn't think about that. You know, even though you might have this huge experience, you know, you will learn for sure with the other community of MVPs and great programmers that we have in the group, right? So just for this, it's priceless, I think.
Yeah. And Robert, I'd like you to kind of comment on your experience with this. Because you were in the beginning, and you're an IoT man, and where you want to see the future. But what has your experience been? And what would you share with those of the people out here, developers, of why they might want to contribute in the future?
Yeah, so it all started out, I had just joined as a fresh MVP. I had talked to Mark at the hackathon and the summit just prior. And then all of a sudden just COVID just happened, and Mark called me on the phone. He was like, we have this project that we want to spin up and we'd like you to help out with it. I was taken back because I still had so much to learn. I still feel like I have so much to learn, and I've just barely scratched the surface on it. And I was truly honored to be a part of that because we had an opportunity to make a difference, to do something about and have a do a COVID response. So it was very special for me to have that opportunity. The next challenge, like a big challenge, was getting to the point of using webhooks. So before we had the idea of using webhooks, we were considering using Customer Portal and driving it all through that. And having worked with that portal, it can be rather challenging. We had that previous hackathon, we had leveraged webhooks for our project. We did a toggle integration, and we just had like this simple link. You'd click on it, and you'd have like this little pop-up message that gave you a status of the toggle time entry that you're clocking in and out of. So my thought was like, well, we can just simply, it's all HTML, so we should just be able to simply add in some text boxes and some just generic form tags and input tags. We should be able to drive everything that we need from there. It was a bit difficult to sell it at first because everybody was on board of like, we got to do this through Portal, we got to do it through Portal. And I was driving this idea, and really the only way that I was able to prove that is to whip up a proof of concept, and just making the suggestion, and didn't get anybody on board, and I just I just had to write it out and prove, get the proof
Viability.
of concept. And then one by one, we started telling people, like, I think Marco was the first seller. Marco was just jumping on board at that point. Harsha, soon after, Yuri, and then of course the executives and Darren, like they were pretty much like the decision makers as to where the project was going. So we finally got a consensus, or just prior to making that decision, Stefan started to get involved, and I was talking with him about the ideas, and so we finally got a consensus that, hey, we're going to do this through webhooks. And that was around the time where I started getting inundated with work. I was there was we had a lot of stuff that we needed to have ready by this summit. We had some high-profile merchants demanding some stuff, and I became just very. I just couldn't put the time into it at that point, and I was considering dropping out at that point. And I talked to Mark, and he talked me out of it and just said, "Hey, just hang out and just be a consultant and whatever." And I just didn't think I was going to have the time to really go through and do it. And that's where Stefan jumped in, Marco as well. Like both of those really nailed this. The ideas and structures that I had in mind were a lot simpler than what Stefan had pulled together, and there were some challenges in terms of, like, I was thinking, well, that's going to just add unnecessary complexity and this and that, but Stefan had that idea as well, and like I had to do with proving webhooks, he just went out and just coded it and made it happen and made it work. And I mean, they're really the stars of this third wave. But I'm glad I'm still here, because I really want to see this go to the next level. And something that's near and dear to my heart is little IoT devices. For some reason, I just have this fascination with them. Darren was busting my chops, and he's going like, well, are you ever going to do a hackathon that's not IoT?
Yeah.
It's just the iteration. It's always the iteration. And one thing that I saw was there is going to be resistance. When you put up an idea, there has to be resistance. If there's no resistance, then that means it's not status quo approved.
Yeah.
So every time.
Yeah, there was definitely tension on the
So there
team,
was.
right? And I had to kind of manage that, right? Because, Stefan's a very passionate Canadian, and we talked about also the language aspect of it, right?
Localization, yeah.
Yeah, localization. So that was an important, and I really wanted, because I knew last year Stefan did a presentation for us with one of his customers, and I asked him to be an MP because I was so impressed with him, and I'm sure you were impressed with him today as well. And he's very talented and extremely hard worker. And I knew that there would be this balance that needed to occur. And I knew, I supported Stefan in what he wanted to do, and and working with the other guys in the background, rallying them behind it, and this is the result. So even though there was tension in the at first with phase 3, how we approach it, because a lot of people, well, let's just do it the simple way. Let's just do the easy thing. Well, I don't think necessarily that's the best approach always, right? I want to look at it, let's build the architecture and the framework that can handle more use case scenarios, right? So that we don't program ourselves into a corner and have to rebuild, right? And that was the balance in the discussion, because some of the team members let's just do the simple thing, and then others was like, let's do the real complicated thing, and we had to we were thinking about even getting rid of attributes at one point, right? But there's value in attributes. We couldn't just abandon the whole thing, right? And that's what would have happened if we would have just abandoned the attributes. But I think we have a nice balance. I think that we're in a position now where we can deliver this and hopefully have other people get involved. So I would ask back to the gentleman that wants the forms, a couple guys in the room, do you have developers to spare? That could contribute in any way? I mean, I mean, it's a serious question.
I mean,
Yeah.
definitely
so-
we gotta use them as beta testers. So
Yeah.
they can start to use it. I mean, we definitely need that different perspective from.
Who do we notify requesting participate in the beta for release 3?
Harsha or myself.
Yeah.
So if you have a relationship with Harsha, that's great. But anyone that's interested in this as a developer as well, you can just contact me, mfranks@acumatica.com, and I would love to have you involved in it. So you had a
I
question?
didn't have a question.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right. We good?
So Yuri, let's give you a chance to
Last chance,
give
yeah.
some feedback and what your experience has been.
For me, I would say most experiences like there are urgent stuff and there is important stuff in life. And when I just started on this project, I didn't have a lot of urgent stuff, so I was able to participate. But then closer to the end of the project, like it didn't finish, but I put on my table a lot of urgent stuff and wasn't able to participate. And like right now, when I look from time perspective, I feel kind of regret that I didn't set priorities, I would say.
And then last, Stefan, I'd love to, we lost you as far, are they still on? They dropped off the call. Okay, I guess they're done. So I wanted to get just further feedback from Stefan, but that's okay. So any other questions before we close it? I guess there's a party happening in 10 or 15 minutes, 10 minutes,
In
I
an
guess. It's always good to show up late anyway, right? To things like
Well, let's go spread the word out there that
Yeah.
Acumatica Survey is ready, and jump in, use the system. It's for you guys, built for you, and built from the MVP developers.
Yeah.
So let's take it to the next level.